What's up, guys? Got another book review for you. 1-2-3 Magic by Thomas W. Phelan. This is obviously a parenting book. It's about disciplining children, and it has other things as well other than just discipline. But the main portion of the book, a lot of it is on the proper way to discipline, right? And he doesn't say this is the only way or whatever, but this is an effective way to discipline children to create emotional health, like self-esteem and self-worth and self-respect, as well as respect for others. But it's also a way to keep the house, calm and cool, help you to keep your cool when your children are acting up, and help you to gain control. And some parents struggle immensely with feeling like the children run the house rather than them. So this is kind of, that's the point of it, is to help you enjoy your kids again, help you get the obnoxious behaviors, as he calls it, under control, so that you can enjoy the fun things and the good things, right? I did an entire video on one of the principles, which was sympathetic listening and how we talk to our kids, right? But I'm going to run through a few things that he brought up. I usually don't have this many like bookmarks, but they're interesting topics, I think. It says the two biggest discipline mistakes that parents make: too much talking and too much emotion. And he's taught the younger the kid, the less talking, right? So in a talk, I can't remember who the professor was, but he's also a child psychologist. He was showing brain scans of children and like the organization of the brain. And basically he said a 4-year-old's brain has twice as much activity as a adult college student, with less than, I think he said, less than a third or less than a quarter of the pathways. So they have tons of information and energy and things just flying through their brain, but it's not organized. So when they're feeling an emotion, they don't identify the emotion, they throw a temper tantrum, right? When you start chatting, talking to them, they're not just making these connections saying, oh, dad's angry because of X, Y, and Z, or I shouldn't have done that because of, all these reasons. You start talking to them because you want them to understand, right? But the younger they are, the less they understand. And especially if there's any emotion involved, it's really confusing. And typically the outcome is shame, which shame is never a good thing in almost any situation. So too much talking, too much emotion. The time you want emotion is positive, right? You don't want your kids associating negative emotion, especially your own negative emotion, with them, right? Their behavior brings out negative emotion in mom or dad. That's shame. Like, that's the heart of shame right there. You want them to relate to you with positive emotion. So when they have an obnoxious behavior, don't get emotional and angry and frustrated, and don't try and talk them out of it or get them to reason with you or whatever. The smaller they are, the less they're going to reason, and that goes up maybe older than you would think, right? So don't over adultize them, as he says, like the over adult assumption. I thought this was funny for me because I actually have people fairly close in my life who take both sides of this. But he says some people think counting is too dictatorial, I can't say the word dictatorial. There we go. While others see counting as a sign of parental weakness, right? That's the weakness one, is where we've gotten personal flack, like, you don't need to count them, just tell them how it is, and that's the end of the story. But the point is not for you to just have authority, right? It's not about you. It's about helping your children think through things. So as they're creating neural pathways in their growing brain, you want them to start identifying When I did that, I had a negative consequence. When I did that and mom started counting or dad started counting and I stopped, there was no negative consequence, right? This is something that's going to be learned over years of, so I always it always cracks me up when people get all, in a huff about this type of thinking. I'm like, well, what's the end goal? For you to just have strictly obedient kids today, right now? Well, you can use shame and anger and fear tactics and whatever, and they might become very obedient right now. But in the long run, it has negative side effects. Whereas his method right here, you're teaching them how to think and reason for themselves starting at a very young age, right? Um, should you ever spank a child? I know that I've heard statistics on this that still approximately half of Americans spank their children, which is interesting. He says, should you ever spank a child? It's about time that people face up to reality. The vast majority of spankings are parental temper tantrums. They are in no way attempts to train or educate children. They are simply the angry outbursts of parents who has lost their control, doesn't know what to do, and wants revenge by inflicting pain or consequence, right? So he's obviously against it. Spanking does not help. It doesn't teach. All it's saying is dad or mom is frustrated, and here's a consequence from them unrelated to your behavior, but I'm mad at you, so here you go. So that's probably not a great idea. This one is actually a little bit it's in contradiction with this book called Real Boys. Maybe I'll do a book review on that soon. Real Boys, at least a large portion of the book is on this same topic, and it's the inverse. So he says, my child, this is like a bullet point, my child has a fit when I try to drop him off at preschool. No matter how much I try to reassure him, he screams whenever I try to leave. And so he says, though separation anxiety is normal in little children, the kid's desperate screams when you try to leave them at preschool with a sitter or even a grandma's can be very upsetting to you. Here's what you do. Bite your upper lip and become the master of the quick exit. When dropping off the children or leaving home, kiss the kids goodbye, tell them that you'll see them again, and get out of there. So he's just drop them off, love you, see you soon, bye, you're out. Well, like I said, this book's in exact contradiction to that. And I'm not obviously the judge. I'm not the one that says this one's right or this one's wrong. It's always good, I think, to get multiple opinions of professionals, right? People who have been practicing and studying and reading and speaking and whatever, about the topic for years and years and years. And, Dr. Phelan says, drop them off and take off. They'll get over it. Check in with your babysitter and see how long they cried, Over here, on the other hand, Real Boys, he talks about the anxiety and some of the side effects that happen long term from a lack of security, right? And lack of support. And he talks about in school when he's invited parents to come with their children for the first few days. They're not trying to push them away or whatever, but they just wait for the child to basically give them the okay that, like, yeah, I don't need you here anymore, Mom. And it typically only takes like 2 or 3 days, maybe 5, and your child grows accustomed to the new environment, doesn't need mom or dad there, is comfortable, and now there's no more separation anxiety. It wasn't a bad experience between mom and dad and the child, right? So it's interesting topic on that. Shouldn't the kids ever apologize? This one's an interesting one, right? Your kid causes some fuss, whether it's between siblings or another person. They get to sit on timeout because it was an automatic 5 or an automatic 3, whatever it was. And most parents are like, go tell them you're sorry. Go say sorry, right? But he says basically, Keep in mind, however, that many apologies are really exercises in hypocrisy. Requiring an apology is often simply part of the child's punishment, not a learning experience involving sorrow or compassion, right? Man, kids move on so fast, and they don't, if they're young, obviously, they don't have a great capacity for um, empathy, right? I've been in your shoes and I apologize for my actions that caused hurt, heartache, and sorrow, right? They're not going through that. They're like, Mom said I had to come say sorry as part of my punishment, so sorry. That's not what we're looking for. It's not about the show, right? People say we spoil our children with exaggerated compliments, artificially inflate their self-esteem, and consequently don't prepare them for the big bad world. He says basically young children up to about age 5 or 6, compliment away. Give them all the compliments you can handle, because at those young ages, they respond positively to any positive reinforcement, right? Any feedback that is good, they enjoy it. They respond positively. They'll repeat the behavior because of it. But as those reasoning skills and that perspective comes in around 5, 6, 7 years old, they start to see the artificial compliments, right? They if they're going to school or they're in sports or playing with cousins or whatever, they start having these like, okay, I didn't do as well as everyone else, but Mom or Dad still says I'm the best. It's they start seeing it and they start catching on, and they'll see through the artificial stuff. Two big things to help boost a child's self-esteem is praise in front of other people and unexpected praise. All right, find a good behavior and praise it. It shouldn't be systematic. It should be whenever you find randomly. Don't over reward and over praise for everything, right? Because then it just becomes the standard. But every once in a while, do something nice or extra praise or whatever, right? If you ask me what's more important, a long-term relationship, communication or shared fun, I would say fun. That's what he says. So the most important thing to do with your children is have one-on-one fun. He says sometimes family fun is overrated because of the chaos, the different dynamics, the different opinions, etc. But one-on-one fun, the simplest way to get on the same page, right? Because it's only the two of you, and you can kind of just say, what do we want to do? And you go do it. And then there's no sibling rivalries or any of that. Like this is the environment when kids really open up to their parents. And he says this is a place for great connection between parent and children. This is a time that you can teach freely because they're actually open, and they'll ask with their natural curiosity will come out, and they'll ask questions that sometimes are just the basic, simple things, and other times it's those more difficult discussions that parents try to find a way to get, to have with their children. But the one-on-one thing kind of naturally presents these opportunities just because the child opens up with curiosity. So anyway, I thought it was a very good book. The most of the book is scenario-based stuff. He's explaining how you would use the 1, 2, 3 magic method in this situation, in public, at home, with family, grandma, the teacher at school, whatever. What if my kid does this or that? And he's got tons of good examples that are very applicable, and I've run into several of them already with my 2 children, and it's kind of nice to have the stories and the scenarios broken down. Lucky for me, my wife was a nanny for a year in New York, and her employer gave her a stack of parenting books. So she, at a pretty dang young age, she was only 18 when she got that, started filling her brain with this type of stuff. And so as I read through the book, I had all these light bulbs going off, that things that my wife has mentioned or implemented or whatever. So kind of cool. Good book. If you're a parent, go check it out. It definitely is helpful. We use the 1, 2, 3 magic method with our children, and it's super good. No fights, you just just count them, and they, for whatever reason, it's got that magic power where like once you get to 2, they're like, might as well quit arguing and just go to take my, either stop the behavior or or you'll say that's a 5, and my son will just go, oh, he goes over and sits on the stairs and takes it. It's like I don't have to fight him or drag him or anything. It just works. So anyway, check it out. I wrote an article on the website. Go to bronsonwilkes.com and check out that article. Several other books there as well. Subscribe to the channel so you can get the book of the day and the business building and success for the health lifestyle, the healthy, wealthy, and happy. We'll catch you on the next one.